Thank you for joining me. I'm not sure what got you into vibration plates or usually there's one or two main reasons that you look at this technology. You're trying to improve upon something. You're trying to save time is a big one. Convenience for a lot of people. It's that time of year where we're all thinking about the gym and all these things we're supposed to be doing. I like doing these types of sessions in an effort to try and get you into the good habits sooner than later. Off camera, I'm kicking off my footwear. I did a video and an article about that this week. Shoes or no shoes. It really is a preference. If you're just starting out, you've got foot issues, you just dropped a whole bunch of money on some fancy orthotics. Start as you are. So however you would normally begin a new activity, whether that's wearing shoes, whether that's wearing compressions. This is simply a kinder activity. And for those of you that are dealing with deficiencies, lymphatic issues is a lot of reasons many of you are using these plates. It's simply an easy way to move. A lot of times the exercise and the workout term is kind of demotivating. It's like diet and workout just it sounds like something we have to do. And I want this to be something that you enjoy doing. So vast majority of you that are following me are using a vibration plate to manage symptoms. Movement, one of the big things that occurs when we move is lymphatic movement. When we move, lymph moves, circulation increases, balance improves, stability improves. There's all kinds of things we know that being active and moving improves. All a vibration plate is an environment that moves you. And if you choose to do other things, maybe exercise positions, things like squats, push-ups, those type of things, it's going to accelerate the effects of those types of exercises. For those of you not able to do traditional activities, maybe you're recovering, maybe your health has gotten to a point where even just walking, you're paying the price for the rest of the day. A vibration plate can facilitate, stepping back and making things simpler, easier. And I encourage, if you are talking symptom management with me today, you're coming from a very poor health place, to use it frequently. But that doesn't mean you got to go 10 minutes every time. So if we were to, if you haven't walked around the block or you get fatigued walking to your car, keep in mind you want to keep your durations short. Just because you've got a preset 10-minute timer doesn't mean that's necessarily the appropriate amount of time for where you're starting out. So a couple things on my trusty dusty clipboard. And I've done videos on most of the major common questions, but it baffles me. There's always something that comes up. But there's two basic types of movement. If you followed any of my videos, seen anything I've done, 99% of what I do is an oscillating movement. Oscillating, pivotal, side alternating. There's a bazillion different names out there because we have to call it different things on Amazon to be able to market it. So a lot of the terminology out there has kind of evolved from the two main machines that started all this because everybody's got to seem a little bit different to try and sell it to you. Okay. The average machine at home is oscillating. 90% of what's being sold out there moves in oscillating movement for a reason. More people prefer that feeling. It's how we walk across the floor. It's how our hips and everything in our body is designed to move as we walk across the floor, run, whatever it is that we're doing. The other style is vertical. Vertical moves straight up and down. It has a healthy amount of research as well. But vertical machines, true vertical machines, are very far and few out there. Most machines nowadays in the consumer world offer what I call a watered down or reduced intense version of vertical machines. Pulsation, if any of you are dealing with a combo machine, pulsation, that buzzy kind of vibration, it feels like vibration, that is vertical. But what's changed in the home market versus to the machines that came out 20 years ago is the intensity of those machines. Verticals tend to be kind of loud, They tend to chatter the teeth and the ears and the head, and it's not a harmful thing. But you, the consumer, if you don't like how it feels, you're not going to be using it regularly. And that's the main reason. And I started in that type of technology. My first one was 12,000 US. My husband and I opened a studio with 4 of them. And we used to make people like suck it up and do this. And the worst we ever did was over exercise anyone. But we did learn that oscillating very shortly as we diversified into both types, more people were lining up at this style of machine than the verticals. And it's because it just felt more natural. If you're dealing with health issues, you can stand fairly tall and still get a lot of whole body movement. If you're dealing with deficiencies, which is where we're going to start today, you'll notice I have my standard stool and machine combo. If you are planning on spending a lot of time using your machine seated by choice or because you have to, try and think functional. So I'm always sitting on a bar height stool, a counter height stool. Depending on your height, you want to be positioned at least a 90-degree or a little bit higher. And if you're just starting out on your plate, or if you haven't played with the most it's not a setting that's marked on your machine or a button that you push, but in oscillating movement, think like a teeter-totter. If you're really wide, you're moving more. If you're really close, you're moving less. On a vertical plate, that's typically a high-low button if you've got a higher end one. The average vertical or pulsation machine out there varies in how much it moves, but it's typically less than a millimeter. On an oscillating plate, wider, depending on the model, you're going to be anywhere from 8 to 10 millimeters. So they have much more movement and much more variety within. You decide how much you want to move based on what feels good to you in complement with the position that you're doing. So if you've never used a machine before, I always recommend think functional, closer feet, more like hip width apart. Don't go wide just because you can. Start functional, hip width apart, and a mid speed. So most machines out there on the market, if you're not investing in a medical grade, are represented in speeds, 60 speeds, 70 speeds, 100 speeds. This one has 60 speeds, and it's got a bunch of preset programs as well. I'm going to bring my machine up to about 30, which is my starting point. This isn't a treadmill. Movement feels different on this plate depending on how fast or slow you're going. And you'll find the mid to higher speeds less choppy, less destabilizing. And if your feet are a little bit closer, you'll be able to tolerate those higher speeds. It's not going to be as intense feeling. So if you're dealing with anything, pain, swelling, arthritis, anything where, just walking or fast walking causes you inflammation or swelling, bring your feet closer and try a mid speed, but just a minute or two. Seated like this, you might be feeling already, excuse me, a little bit of an itch or pins and needles. That's the first common side benefit that people feel when they start using a vibration plate. Not everybody feels it, but that represents an increase in lymph movement, circulation. In cases where perhaps you're dealing with neuropathy or other issues where you have nerve damage, scar tissue, as we get a rush of circulation and lymphatic to those areas and the movement increases, the sensation increases. And often you feel that bit of a pins and the needles or an itchiness before or after you're using your plate, and in some cases when you're using it at the time. And this is one reason if you find this sensation is very heightened, there's a condition out there, I did a video on this a couple weeks ago, called MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, where with increased activity, not a vibration plate thing, but with increased activity, some deal with an elevated histamine response, and it gets beyond a little bit of an itch. I've seen hives. Take whatever steps you would normally take when you're doing new or beginning activity. That's a discussion to have with your doctor. Some take antihistamines. There's some herbs, some topical lotions to consider. But if you do have MCAS, or if you're having a severe itch reaction, you may be dealing with MCAS. Talk to your doctor about that one. There is a difference between exercise and therapy. For some of you, this may feel like exercise, But exercise is going to be more weight bearing. One of the big benefits that comes when you're using a vibration plate, and one of the big reasons many of you are seeking it, is to increase your bone density. Bone density is about you bearing your mass. It's not a setting. It's not a machine type. Anyone telling you that is trying to sell you something. What is the science? It doesn't matter what the science is. There's lots of studies out there, different speeds, different machines. But the one common thread between all the vibration plate studies, quoting bone density, strength gains, the big stuff, is you're bearing your mass, or you're partially bearing your mass. And that's the same way that you increase bone density on the floor, is by doing weight bearing exercises. If you choose to turn it into something like a squat or a one-legged movement, other exercise positions, it's obviously going to give you different benefits, but anything you do on the plate will increase bone density. It's going to increase circulation. It's going to increase lymphatic movement. I have notes. It's going to improve your balance and your stability. For those of you that are dealing with balance issues, I don't want you doing balance moves. I want to improve your balance, but I don't want to challenge it. So instead of, trying to do something like this that you probably wouldn't do on the floor, let alone on a machine that makes it more challenging, try just closing the eyes for 3 to 5 seconds while you're doing your standing exercises, and it challenges the proprioception. We rely very heavily on our sight, and when we take it away, the rest of the body senses, our body awareness, our feet play a very critical role in that. And part of the reason I encourage you to spend some time barefoot is it also improves the structure of the foot, the sensitivity, and our gait, our balance, all of these things have a very big relationship with our feet and what they sense when they touch the floor. There's all kinds of amazing stuff communication-wise going on in our central nervous system. So if you are coming from a place of below baseline, I want you to think symptom management first. The exercise will come. If you're just starting out, give yourself a week or two just to get used to this thing. How does it make you feel? Did you do enough? Did you do too much? There's lots of different reasons that you may want to just experiment with this. If you're fearful at all, or you have any questions in your mind where you feel you should be discussing with your doctor prior to using it, you can try it seated. Take the body weight out of the equation. For those of you that are dealing with, I don't know, hip replacements, spinal surgery, you just had liposuction, taking the body weight out of the equation, but still getting some lymphatic and some circulation movement, it is a huge bonus. If you're very tender, if you're very sore, reduce the intensity, bring the feet closer. If as you're using it, it feels okay and you want to take on a little more action, widen up the feet a little bit. I just want to make sure that nobody's sitting there waiting to be admitted. No, we're good. The other key, as I mentioned earlier, with symptom management is to use it often. How often should I use it? Let your symptoms drive that. If you're dealing with pain, fatigue's a big one, swelling, maybe it's just a minute or two. Just sitting here, letting the lymph move, the circulation. Maybe you need energy. Maybe you need more stability. There's lots of reasons to use this throughout the day as symptoms present themselves, or before you go to do other things. Maybe you've got to go to the grocery store. Maybe you've got a therapy appointment. Maybe you just want to go have coffee with a girlfriend and feel more stable. So just using your plate for a minute or two before you head out the door. This is a common way I use mine with shoes. I'm just heading out the door to shovel snow because it's that time of year and I know my back and my shoulder's going to pay the price. So I might just, stand on this for a minute or two and loosen up before I head out to do the work. Use it as a warm-up, not just for exercise, but I know a lot of the marketing around these machines markets to the athletic crowd. In my experience, the vast majority of you are not using these plates to train for a purpose. You want to move and feel better. You'd like to do some exercise and you'd like to get there, but you've got some short-term stuff that we can help address to get you to that point. And then second, think exercise. So once you're moving and feeling better, once you kind of, have a feel for your plate and what you like and what you don't like, then you can progress to some structure. And I'm going to give you a little bit of that today now. So if you're going to learn one move on a vibration plate, and I'm going to give you 3 different variations of it, a squat is the one exercise that's probably going to give you the most functionality, meaning, getting up out of the chair, getting into the car, getting out of the bathtub. Our legs, especially as women, this is our area of power. But it also tends to be an area that digresses in strength as we sit too much. As we have babies, as we gain weight, there's all kinds of reasons our hips, our knees, our strength declines. So the first variation of a squat, and a squat's going to do, as I said, it's going to improve your mobility, the quality of life, just your day-to-day. But many of you are also looking for weight loss benefits. I know that you are. And a squat is going to be the one exercise that's going to burn the most calories. It's going to give you energy. And it doesn't need to be a big 10 to 15 minute workout. So if you're just starting out and these are the goals, maybe you're not able to stand on the plate for long periods and you're spending some time seated. The first variation I want to show you is a sit to stand. It's not really an exercise position, but it is. It's something that we all do throughout the course of the day, probably 100 times, 200 times a day. And it's that action of standing up out of our chair. If the balance isn't there and this one scares you, the next variation will be better. For those of you that had no problem doing that, I'm going to turn my machine back on. How smooth was that? Okay. I'm still working with my mid speed of 30. My feet are hip width apart. If you look more like this, where you have to use those arms to get up out of the chair, we need to do some work there. But one of the best reasons to use this as a starting exercise, if the stability's there, is it's not going to take very long to get strength in the legs, to get you to the point where you can stand up without using your arms. And that's really the long-term goal. Once you're able to do that, I know there's more we can do as far as getting you down on the ground, rolling around and doing some of the nice massage stuff. So if I was working in a clinic, this is a very common exercise I see a lot of my seniors or those recovering from surgeries and injuries working on, where you're sitting maybe in a chair on the edge of a massage table to get you a little bit higher, and you just work on standing up. The scarier part of the equation is sitting back down, okay? It's always a good idea to have a stool here from a safety perspective. If you are dealing with fatigue, you can always just sit back down. But for those of you that are wanting to burn calories, this is going to get you nice and deep. What I would like you to do now, instead of sitting back down, is just almost sit back down and just hold still. You're going to feel the burn, the quads. Make sure those heels are planted. Make sure those knees are not drifting forward past the toes. Try and keep a nice straight spine and just go as low as your range of motion, your bad knee, whatever you might be dealing with, allows you, and hold still. By not moving, we're not irritating the joints in the same fashion that moving would present. For those of you that don't do these exercises regularly, I want you to improve on your position and your technique and be confident in this pose before we start adding the dynamic movement. For those of you that are doing these types of exercises regularly, you feel comfortable on the plate, dynamic movement is absolutely fine. You're not going to last as long, but I want those moves to be slow, purposeful, so you can feel the stimulation build and all the way back down, okay? If you can do that type of an exercise earlier in your day, it's going to elevate the metabolism. It's going to help us burn more idle calories throughout the course of the day. So for those of you that are standing on your plates regularly, that was just a variation. For those of you that was a little bit scary, you don't feel stable enough to be standing up out of the chair yet, I would like you to start in a standing position and just mimic the same exercise. So go as low as your range of motion allows, hold still, and then just stand back up, okay? If you are a fitness guru, you're beyond that, you want more, keep the exercise the same, but maybe we add more mass. This is a great way to pick up the bone density, to pick up the weight loss by just making those muscles work harder. It doesn't mean you need to do a whole new program and a whole bunch of new moves. So let's do that same exercise. We're going to squat and we're just going to hold. And I've added 15 pounds to the equation. Really depends on you. For those of you that are looking on working upper body, why not combine things? Maybe you don't have fancy weights like Deb, but you probably have a couple of bags of sugar or rice at home. There's lots of different ways to add mass. Throw on a backpack, pick up a couple of jugs of milk. You don't necessarily need to invest in a whole bunch of extra stuff. Pick up the grandkids. All right. What you're also going to find by adding mass is your time to fatigue. If you are honestly pushing yourself in your range of motion and in those positions, you're going to get there quicker. That's a basic exercise. One thing that I find when I do my squats, because my range has gotten pretty low, is I like to always this is kind of my wind down one. I'm always, so you can see the sides. I just like to lean over, the knees are just undone. And it's just nice and relaxing in the low back and the hips. That is my fave. Okay. The best thing you can do for yourself if you're not using your plate regularly, and what I mean every day, you can use this every day for the feel good stuff. The fitness, if you are truly pushing yourself to fatigue, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing legs every day. It's when we get into upper body and the planks, especially as women. If you are pushing yourself to a point of fatigue, give yourself a day off in between to do some recovery. But it doesn't mean there isn't other things that you can't do as a feel-good things. Just some movement in the lymph. My favorite seated one, for those of you who haven't seen this one, and I'm still doing most of this at that mid speed of 30. If you find on this one it's too intense, bring the feet closer. Okay, we're going to take our hands first. We're going to lock our arms. Feet are still hip width apart. Put them on the knees, and you're going to feel a little bit of movement into the neck and the shoulders. It's a great way if you're dealing with lymph node issues. We as women always have tension in the neck and the shoulders from the purse and the kids and the bra, and it's just where we carry our tension. So relax. Don't resist it. Don't fight it. If you fight it, you're just going to become rigid and you're going to rattle your head more. Just breathe, focus on a good position, maybe do some shoulder rolls, whatever you would normally do sitting at a desk if you've been hanging your brain over a computer for too long. If you like that one and you want a little bit more intensity, take the elbows and lean all the way over and put those on the knees. And you're going to feel this a little bit deeper because there's not as much dampening. We're going straight from the elbow into the shoulders. Again, if you find this too much, bring the heels a little bit closer. That's your point of contact. You're going to feel this more in the shoulder blades. Arch up like a cat. Lean forward the other way. Just move around. Experiment with what feels good. And the more you kind of wiggle around, you're going to feel that you're directing it in different places. This is a great way to get some upper body relief for those of you that lack range of motion, that are dealing with shoulder issues. It's hard to sometimes use handheld tools, or if you're lacking range of motion, you can't get down on the ground yet, this is a really good starting point. So if you're not doing any upper body and you're spending a lot of time seated, add some of these variations to just get some lymph going and get some tolerance built up to feeling it in the upper body. If you stick with these exercises, that basic squat, you will progress to be, it's never the getting down on the ground, it's the getting back up that's typically more challenging. Okay. What else can I tell you? So forever benefits, as I mentioned, I call them forever benefits because they really kind of happen regardless of what you're doing on the plate. And this is one of the big reasons you want to use it regularly. You've got the lymphatic movement, you've got the circulation. Many of you are just looking for an easy way to move lymph. And like I said, when we move, lymph moves. So even if that's all you're using this for, you're far further ahead than many other devices because you're getting lymphatic movement. But by using a vibration plate, it's a mechanical stimulus of movement. You're going to be getting the weight-bearing exercise, which gives you the longer-term forever benefit, which is bone density. Balance and stability is ever occurring. Your body's always trying to keep itself stable. A lot of my therapists will use that pre-treatment just to get patients more stable before they do other treatments. And feel good first, fitness second. So start moving and feeling better before you try to jump into the realm of doing squats and weights and things like that. And keep it simple. If it's a whole bunch of different exercises and it's this big elaborate routine, be realistic with who you are. If you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you've never seen the inside of a gym, and I'm teaching you for the first time today how to do a squat, I recommend keep it to 1, 2, 3 exercises and focus on doing them very well and then progress from there. The squat, as I said, is a great all-in-one for lots of different reasons, but even just standing on the plate is going to slowly start improving not only the stability, the strength, the bone density. Make sure that you're giving yourself the compliments, rest, nutrition, those types of things to support the activity, especially the hydration. If you're dealing with lots of swelling and lymph is the goal, make sure that you're in check on other areas that, of course, influence and support your activities. So I'm going to stop rambling for a minute, and I think I want to switch gears to questions.
Hi, how are you? So I'm kind of new to this.
Okay.
The one of my vein specialists feel as though that may have developed LIP.
Lipedema.
First, they thought I had the LYM, the PH one.
Lymphedema.
Yes. Now he
Okay.
said no because it's both sides. So here's my question, because I'm noticing a lot of fat pockets forming in my back of my knee.
Yep.
And he suggested that I get this vibration plate, which I do have. And I
Okay.
found you on Facebook, thank God. So I watched some of your videos. So here's my question.
Yep.
Even though those pockets have already been developed, can this even now help
To
me,
help.
or
Well, it's
am
a
I too
matter
far
of
behind?
how it helps and understanding that. So, first of all, I gotta say, a lot of people come to my group. I'm a vibration plate specialist, but I fell into the world of lipedema about 5, 6 years ago, and I kind of had all these lights going off in my head, going, "Wait a minute," because I've probably been dealing with this a lot of years, and it's a lot more prevalent than people first realize. Secondly, you were suggested to use a vibration plate. So whoever the doctor is that you're dealing with is a pretty rare bird that they suggested that you may have lipedema, because usually they laugh and slam doors in your face and say it's your fault. And then if you mention that you're using a vibration plate, all the vibrator jokes and all that stuff comes up. So that's awesome that you have someone that is at least, presented information for you to seek further information on. There's a couple of really good sites for information, but everybody dealing with lipedema, some of them talk about stages. I don't know. I've seen some women completely reverse from where they started. Can this condition be reversed? I'm not the doctor. I can't suggest that, but I can speak from what I've seen. And in dealing with this community in 5, 6 years, anything from the knee pockets to the bat wings to I do see major improvements. And a lot of it has to do with the self-care and sticking with it. So I really think all the surgeries and all the medications and everything else aside, there's certainly those conversations to explore. But whether you have a diagnosis or not, one of the big things I talk about in my page is nobody's going to do the self-care for you. So even if you do get an official diagnosis, like some people wait 10 years. Are you going to wait 10 years? No, you've already got the plate, you're moving forward. So for the knee pockets, yes, specifically, I have seen improvement. Why they're forming or how they're forming on you may be different than 100 other people in the group, but it is an indicator. The pocket, it's not uncommon in the summer when I see people walking up the stairs at the post office or something that I see those knees and I have to go, excuse me, because most people, I'm in Canada, it's definitely never been heard of by most doctors here. Doesn't exist as a condition here. But one of my hacks for knees in general, and it really depends on your range of motion, Shauna, if you're not able to get up and down, the first thing with your plate is just to kind of, as I said at the beginning of this, get used to it, how it feels for you, what your sensitivities are. The big thing for total body, knees, everything is just to start getting that lymph moving more effectively. So if activity is not something that you're able to do regularly, moving, that's kind of where most of the docs and the physical therapists are suggesting the plates is an easy way to move. So if you're in a desk job maybe you stand too much. There's all kinds of reasons that those knees will be worse probably later in the day. So if you could, get a little bit of time, anything you can do to get the lymph moving is going to help that overall. The knees specifically, you can target areas once you're comfortable. How I do that is getting on the ground. So if this isn't an option, this is something to work towards. Now, I use this for different reasons. I don't have lipedema and I don't get the pockets in the back of my knees, but I got into this because I have a bad knee. And when I do things I'm not supposed to and wear high-heeled shoes and show off on my machines, sometimes I pay the price. This is a pull noodle that I've cut the width, and I just lay it on the back and just sort of target that area specifically. The pull noodle is a little bit softer than a traditional roller. They're a little bit firm. They're not that comfortable on the floor, let alone adding the shaking of the machine. So this just helps the stimulation move into the knee. The knees themselves, they don't exactly lay flat on the machine. So this is a good way to get them directly. This also works really good just on the back of the ankles. So if you got pulling in the ankles, you just got to get a little creative in where you want to put this. And I also use a lot of my folks that are dealing with severe neuropathy, fallen arches, seated on the stool. I'll use it just as a way to massage and help work with, stability and flexibility in the ankle. So this is just the bigger size pull noodle that I've cut the width of the machine. And I've got a couple, depending on how bad the swelling is. This isn't something I suggest today. This is something to work towards, but if you need less, it kind of depends on how it feels to you on the machine. But I use the other half and I cut it lengthways, so it's not as tall. It kind of depends on what feels physically best for you, if that makes sense. Those are my little torture tools, and I use those for all kinds of things. But I would suggest starting out, little things. If there's any exercises that you are doing or you've been recommended to do, anything for the knees is good. You'll get some movement and strength in there as well. Any movement's going to help. And you may notice, I should mention, if you're just starting out, it's so easy to overdo it. What's a couple minutes? It's the number one thing that kind of, if you're dealing with stagnant lymph or you have certain areas that have been compromised, it's not uncommon to go too long because it just feels so good when you're on it. But if you're moving more lymph than your system yet has the capacity, and this is particularly important if you're dealing with things like really severe varicose veins or venous insufficiency, where the veins themselves can't facilitate all the blood flow, you guys have to use some common sense. So I wouldn't go 10-15 minutes. You wouldn't go for a half-hour jog for the same reason. So when you do start getting to this type of thing where you're massaging directly, maybe a minute per massage, see how you do. I'd rather you do more later than over massage yourself. And yeah, the knees are great, but now it's all moved up into the hips or the feet, or so sometimes you'll have increased swelling in different areas because the system isn't completely moving better head to toe yet. So that's where the consistency of sticking with it is going to be the biggest help in the long run. Does your mobility allow for something like that, Shauna, do you think?
Yes, I think it does.
Okay. And if it doesn't, working those squats will get you. You've already spent money on a machine. So most of this in Canada, I can't get pool noodles this time of year, but your secondhand stores, your Dollaramas, you should be able to find half this stuff super cheap. If you don't have the desire or want to get in the car today, just to try it, even just a nice tight rolled up towel, just something to bridge that gap in the back of the knee to give it a try if you want.
I will do that. Thank you.
And it might be extra itchy in those areas where you have extra swelling or less sensitivity because of the swelling. As the things get moving and flowing and sensation returns, you might notice it's like really itchy back there more so than the rest because it's been a stagnant area, if that makes sense. And I think Mary has a question. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks
for being here.
Yep. Thank you. I also suffer with the lipedema and
diagnosed or just suspected?
Been diagnosed.
Okay.
Well, through a physical therapist. She said that I she
Mo-
believes. She
Most
can't
people are
diagnose, but
hearing
she
it from
believes.
somebody that can't write the piece of paper. Just because they're the hands-on people touch and feel and they have a different perspective, I think, than the MDs. Like
Yes,
it feels different, right?
right. And my
Cool.
doctor, sent me to her. So,
Awesome.
I feel like, she's on board with it too. So,
Cool.
um, so that's basically why I, want to get back into, I've had my vibration plate for quite a while, and, I just haven't been consistent. So that's
Okay.
my new goal right now. I need to get myself healthy because it's only getting worse. So,
Well, and I hope, give yourself a break. You're dealing with a condition that you have those good days and bad days too, depending on where you're at with it. And just life. Come on, guys. Like life is not the same as it was 5, 10 years ago. The stress and all of these things contribute to the inflammation overall, right? So
right.
um, skip the workout and give yourself forgiveness on that. A lot of people look at me and think, oh yeah, like, she works out a lot. You know what? I'm lucky if I do the feel good stuff a couple, 3 times a day, but because I've kind of maintained, I was over 200 at my biggest. I walk about buck 30 nowadays. The obesity fat can be lost, and that's a big stigma in this community. So a lot of us
Yes.
want to get into better shape, but a lot of us want to lose weight, but have been told in this community, this is important for Shauna. Don't let anybody that says you can't do something or you shouldn't do something or it's dangerous. My new answer is that your opinion, or can you show me proof? So show is this something that just because we've been saying it for so long, and the weight and the heat is another one. If you have lipedema, you can't lose weight and you can't tolerate heat. And I used to get told this all the time, and then people started saying, well, no, I do, or I have been, or I've lost 100 pounds, or I sit in my. So I began to question it, and I still take all the grief from many of the doctors, but 60 to 70% of the people in my group are using heat. And I bet you the same amount. I'm not saying everybody's lost 100 pounds, but it's amazing just if your lymphatic system is doing its job more effectively, it's amazing how many other things come without having to kill yourself, if that makes
That
sense.
does. Yeah, that makes sense.
And a lot of you, I'm not saying a vibration plate is the only activity. There's other, you should do something you enjoy. If it's something you have to do, nobody wants to do it, right? It's like homework. But
Right.
the pool is a big one. The biggest thing I get from some of my new members is I just want to be able to get back to the pool. So maybe this just helps you get back to the pool, because sometimes getting to the pool and back, you're done for the day anyways. So even if it just gives you the ability to return to those other things that you quit because they weren't working for you, or you'd pay the price, that's kind of what I hope. And if on those days you can't get to go do other things, or you're having a bad day, the more time you spend with this, the more you know what to do to pick it up at certain times, and what the 2-minute thing looks like before you go see the therapist or what have you. So it doesn't always have to be the big workout. Just do a little bit of something every day, and what you'll find after about, I'm going to predict week 2, week 3, is you start craving it. You'll notice if you didn't spend time, you're not pooping as good. The restless leg came back last night. There's all kinds of things that you didn't even realize it was doing until you stop using it for a while. So if all I can do is motivate you and nag you a bit to get back into it before all the pressure and sales pitches, because I think everything's been on sale since about Halloween. I can't keep track of all these.
Oh,
Oh,
before
I'm so
Halloween.
sick of the sales, but it's a bigger time of year, the fitness focus. And I think many in this community, I'm slim now, but in my mind, I still buy things that are long enough to cover my bum. I was always a fat girl growing up, and just because I was German and I ate lots of carbs. But what I have learned is mentally, we still beat ourselves up. We don't need the doctor to do that. But if you can start moving and feeling better, then we tend to try on the bathing suit, or we care a little bit less about what we look like in the beach, if the pain and some of the other things aren't weighing us down too. Pain does a lot. Are you dealing with pain, Mary?
Yes.
Where is it bad?
My legs mostly, and
Okay.
yeah, just mostly my legs.
when you were using the machine, was it, sometimes that you just don't know what to do, or it was, you didn't think you
You
were
know
getting
what?
benefit?
No, I did. I felt great when I was using it, and I don't know why I stopped. I just
Life
stopped pretty
gets in
much.
the way. I
Yeah,
get it. Yeah, no,
you
I get
know,
it.
and I'm retired now, and it's like I'm becoming more sedentary, and the more sedentary I am, the more I hurt, and the more I,
Yeah.
swell up, and I'm
Do
eating
you like
bad,
do
eating
you like to
sweets.
cook?
Yeah, I like to cook, so
Do you have a big kitchen island?
no, I wish I did.
Do you have room in the kitchen for it?
Um, yes, I mean, I that's where I do my vibration plate. I set it in front of my counter, and
If
I
if you
do.
have somewhere like the using it throughout the day thing kind of falls into my when you're picking a machine, everybody thinks, the bells and the whistles.
Uh-huh.
Most people that come to my page already have a machine. I even though I do sales, I got to feed my kids somehow too, but even though I
Right.
do promotion, I'd say 80 to 90%, you don't look for the how to use it until after you've bought it. So most people joining my group actually already own a machine. It's all different types. But what I find is if it's too overwhelming, if it's too encumbersome, it's hard to use it throughout the course of the day if it weighs 70 pounds and you got to. I had a
Right.
lady yesterday. She might see the recording of this, but Lord bless you, Diane. Diane's been a client of mine since I sold the medical grade and supported them. And she had this big, bad medical grade and she wanted it in the kitchen and it won't fit through her bedroom door, which is where she assembled it. So she bought a little Life Pro just because she wanted to be able to transport it. Sometimes it's more about
Right.
how you're using it than the performance and the features and the settings. We get wrapped up in that, and especially if you're not using it and you've spent a lot of money on it. So the newsletters, I kind of, I don't want to call them my nag letters, but that's kind of why I started the newsletters about a month and a half ago. Is not everybody's on my Facebook page. I'm at the point now where I doubt 5 to 10% see the regular feed of me nagging you. So this is just another way of I'm old school. I'll look at an email before I log into Facebook in the morning. That's just where my people find me. And
Yeah.
I like a piece of paper that I can print off and write notes,
Me too.
stuff like that too. So this session today isn't as much a workout, but it was kind of my thank you for listening to my ramblings. And I'm trying to put more and more in video as well, because I know many of you, not everybody even has a printer anymore. Since when I first started doing this, there wasn't even YouTube videos to do this with. What, Mary? Any other questions, Mary, that you had personally or were
Uh,
curious about?
no, I don't think so. I think I'm glad for the little email that I got today. It got me back in here, and I got to get going on it. So I'm going to
Perfect.
be watching more of your stuff, and as I go progress along, I have trouble getting down on the ground,
Okay.
range of motion and all that. So I need to work on all that. So
So simple squats. Go from standing to squatting.
yes,
And
okay,
it doesn't have to be, like I say, a big workout. Just start moving and feeling better, and all of a sudden you just feel like you want to do something else.
yeah,
And on
okay,
Mondays in the group, my fat disorders group, not everybody's a member there, but that's
uh,
my nag day. So Monday's check-in day. Whether
okay.
whether
I am
you're
I am in the group. So
so whether you're checking in because you're using or you're just checking in for your own mindfulness, that's my kind way of nagging you on Monday.
okay, good, good.
So, and I do these. I tried to do in November. I did them topic specific, so I did like bone density and balance, but this time didn't work for that. So I may in January again just keep this open format, and I'll run these every week at different times. I tried to make it for everybody because I got lots in the UK and Australia. But if you ever are personally at home and you're in a situation, most of you have my emails now. Never hesitate to just email me as well. Sometimes you don't want to talk about it in front of everybody, and there's certain topics that is the case, incontinence or constipation or it's funny because in my special needs group, I also, for those of you that are not aware, I supported a large number of people in the pediatric world with cerebral palsy and other special needs. And I mean, all we do is talk poop sometimes, like for 2-3 days, because it's a common thing when you live in a wheelchair to be constipated. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about this as a parent or as you personally, sometimes it's a little bit different, but that's also another common side effect when you first start using a plate. if it's a problem. I have to do a video on that one yet though. The poop. Um,
I think I'm good.
you're good. And you may be good at, maybe you just want to go shake and have some, I have so many
I am.
leftovers in my fridge. We did a
Yeah.
seafood feed here on Christmas Eve. I did, my brother is single, so he always comes. We did chowder and we did scallops and and then about 3 in the morning, my daughter had the worst fever. Nothing to do with the seafood, but it was just our turn. So we spent yesterday at home, which was kind of nice on Christmas Day, not running around and marathons and throwing the poor kids in the car. No, you can't play with those toys. We got to go to dinner. You don't think about it, right? Until you're stuck
Right.
at home and you can actually, sometimes it's nice to just do nothing, right? Because we all, the self-care in itself is a full-time job. I don't know if any of you follow another really good group. If you don't follow them, especially for you, Shauna, if you want some lipedema information, is the Lipedema Warriors. And of course, to complicate things, it's a different spelling overseas. It's LIPO edema. If you're searching, but they have a very, very large group. A lot of my leaning on and learning early on was through Marianne Peterson, one of their admins, and they've just got some different perspectives. There's a couple of good nutritional groups, but Marianne has always said, there's self-care, but you guys also have the lipedema care. So she said, for the self-care is like going to the theater and having, there's self-care, but you guys also have to do the lipedema care. So, self-care is kind of one of those terms that's getting, we all know we're supposed to, but lipedema care and investing even the littlest of time, whether you're using your plate, red light's good, PM, anything is good for stimulating lymphatic and circulation. But where the plate gives you the advantage is that weight bearing, it's going to help the strength, the bones, the physical function. And if you do have other things, if you haven't seen any of those sessions of mine, combine them. Put your red light panel in front of you while you're doing it on, or put your red light belt on. If you're finding time is one of the reasons you looked at this technology, because that's how it's marketed. It reduces the amount of time you have spent doing this, but sometimes you don't have the time. Maybe you got 4 jobs and you're just trying to keep the lights on, and the self-care or the lipedema care is going by the wayside. So you can combine these technologies, but it's the doing it frequently for the lymph piece that you just want to be mindful of. And it only needs to be a minute or two. And you'll feel better for it, whatever that fix may be. So, well, thank you guys for joining me on Boxing Day. I've got my camera up here, so I'm screwing myself up today, but I will be live here again next week on a class on the 30th. I'll be running one of those. That's $5 to attend that one. Thank you especially to Shauna, Joe, and Marie for joining me on Boxing Day. It was nice to have company, and have a great rest of your holidays we've got about a week left, and don't let the pressure of all this setting, I don't like talking about resolutions because, talking about it and writing it on the calendar is one thing. It's the doing it that I always tend to fall short on. So I would rather in my own mind make that commitment and surprise myself than putting all this pressure of, oh my gosh, I told everybody that I'm not going to wear white after Labor Day, and here I did. So be kinder to yourself. And as I said in my first newsletter of earlier this week, I hope it wasn't too cheesy, but I really did struggle because so many people this year are coming, every year we just think, oh God, it's been a tough year, but I feel like I've been saying that for so long. And whatever it is that you need better, whether it's the bank account, whether, there's so many things we'd like to improve, but whatever it is that you need better for you is my wish. And I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully before the end of 2024, but if not, definitely in 2025. So thanks again, you guys. Have a great rest of the week.